Hey everyone, Newsham here again, bringing you a replay analysis for the 4 role. So today's focus, we're going to be talking about understanding early rotations and laning. That'll be the main emphasis. So we're going to be showing 2 replays. One is going to be where we're a little bit more focused on the lane itself. We're going to be playing Rubik. And then in the second one, we're going to be looking at Earth Spirit replay. So both games are going to be myself. Should be able to give a little bit better insight into what exactly is going on as I'm the one playing. So that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the replay. So for this one, I'm actually going to be playing Earth Spirit and I'm versus an Undying in lane. So right away I knew that the lane is going to be really hard. I even itemized for the Undying specifically. I went and got a magic stick. So when you're looking at your lane matchup as a 4, you want to think about when exactly you want to be leaving the lane if you can, and if you're stronger in lane, if you're going to stay in there, and how you're going to itemize and build in general for that. So like I said, for this one, I know versus Undying, he's going to be able to literally 2v1 the lane, so I want to leave as soon as possible and just play around the other lanes. When you're on a roamer hero, like Earth Spirit or Tiny, which are really popular in this meta right now, or like Earthshaker in previous metas, typically you can't play around 3 lanes or 2 side lanes specifically, because they're just too far apart, especially in the early game. You don't have enough space to work with. So what you want to do is usually want to pick one side lane and mid to play off of. So for this game, like I said, Undying's going to basically be able to 2v1 the lane, so I don't want to be here. Pretty much went into the game knowing this. We already talked about it in the pregame as well, with the Ember and the AA. So I fully plan on just leaving this lane as soon as possible. Like you can see here, it's already pretty bad, and this is just like the runes, right? So with that said, you can see even my skill build, I am going in with this idea. Instead of going for something like Rolling Boulder and just defaulting to leveling that up like Earth Spirits always do, I know that we're not going to be able to harass them or do anything aggressive in this lane. So I just go for my Q to help secure last hit on the range creep, maybe even shove the lane out and just have some harass potential. Let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit. What ends up happening even is I wanted to go for the last hit on this range, but the Undying bullied the Snapfire out of range, or the lane so bad that there wasn't even an opportunity to use my Q. So instead what I did is I went behind the tower and grabbed the creeps and pulled it behind. I could have went even further and pulled it behind the tower here, but I didn't feel like I had enough time, so I just go ahead and pull it here so that basically the lane isn't stuck in front of the tower and the Undying and the Juggernaut have all this dead space here to bully us. So now that we have a little bit more safety, you know, between the tower and whatnot, we can actually get a little bit of our lane going. The reason why I don't leave right away, even though like I said I don't want to be here, is I want to try to help the Snapfire get somewhat of a game. Not just that, but if I were to try to roam right now, I only have my Q, and honestly I need a little bit more than that, which basically just means level 2. So on someone like Tiny, you could consider maybe roaming at level 1 with Avalanche or Toss, but it might not be as effective, so usually you want to go for level 2 first. On heroes like Earthshaker, I think going at level 1 is perfectly fine. On Earth Spirit and Tiny, you hit a little bit more of like a power spike when you hit level 2, so you usually just want to play for that. As you can see here, that Undying is literally 2v1ing us. There's not much we can do. So we're just trying to play around these creep poles, trying to block their creep camps, kill their creep, their big creep here. Just do as much as possible to mess with the creeps. And again, you can see here I'm using my Q to get the last hit on that. And now that I'm level 2, I'm basically looking for any opportunity to leave the lane. So I'll put the player perspective on my camera. You can see here I'm even looking top, walking to my courier, and I'm ready to leave. Even though it's only, 3 minutes into the game. Someone in like a lower rating game might not feel comfortable leaving here, but basically I know that being bot, there's nothing to accomplish here. But at least if I go top, or even mid, at least there's potentially a kill. So yeah, as you can see here, nice little successful rotation. Honestly, in low rated pubs, you're not going to have probably as good a communication as we had here. I literally know both these people, it's Gunner and Jubei. I have a really good relationship with them, so it's really easy to set this up, but like let's say you don't know these people and it's kind of like a question mark. You're probably gonna have to be a little bit more vocal. Typically as a support, you're gonna have to be more vocal anyways than like a core player would. But you always have the option as well. Like for example, I didn't have to leave bot when I did. What I could have done is I could have waited for the rune. Because typically when you're making a move, you don't want it to be like robotic or kind of random. You want it to feel nice. You want to make a nice natural rotation. So one way you could do that is just trying to help secure your mid the rune. Like say this isn't a void, it's like a quap or something, right? Maybe the quap will go make a rotation with the rune, and I could either like take his lane, maybe we could kill mid, or we could go somewhere else. So that's one thing you could look out for, especially on roamers, is just try to help secure that 4-minute rune. As the 4 roll, you're usually going to be in a position of where you're going to like control the tempo of the game, right? You're going to be moving around the map a lot. Playing around the power runes is really important. Yeah, so at this point, just running around looking to see if I can make something happen mid. Nothing's going to happen, it's just a Bat Rider, and I have a pretty static mid hero on Void. Just go ahead and try to secure top again. Go for the bounty runes. And like I said before, if you noticed, I'm just playing around mid and top because I know that bot is just a little too hard to do anything. Sure, my Snapfire might not have the best game, as you can see they're literally the lowest net worth, but it's better that I try to help the top and the mid lane try to get a game than if I were to sit here in this dead lane and just lose really bad. Because the best case scenario is if I help secure these 2 lanes, you know, that's still 2 lanes winning, it's not that bad. You know, it's still 2 out of 3. So ultimately, eventually Snapfire can find a game somewhere. Whether it's, you know, I help mid and then mid goes to jungle, and then Snapfire can go take mid EXP and gold. Maybe Snapfire can get involved in some kills that we have happen top, if it's really that desperate. Basically, we force the Undying to come top, because, you know, it's a tri-lane versus 2 heroes and they're getting dumpstered. And now Snapfire has more of a free game, because it's a range hero versus Juggernaut. It's just really important to think about this stuff as a support, because if you're in a really crappy laning scenario, there's typically some way or another to force a better situation for yourself. And rather than trying to relieve the pressure of a bad lane, it's a lot better to go somewhere else and apply pressure rather than to relieve it, to like get the pressure off of this bad lane. I think that's a really misunderstood concept and it's pretty underutilized, so make sure you think about that. So for the other replay, even though we're still in this one, I want to talk about it really quick. We're going to be looking at a Rubik, which is a hero that typically you're going to have a good lane. So, you know, if you have a good lane, there's no reason to go try to apply pressure elsewhere. You can just apply pressure in your lane and just get a lot out of that lane and probably force reactions to you rather than reacting to the enemy team. So just wanted to share about how, you know, they're kind of like polar opposites in that sense. It's pretty easy. We're just kind of taking control of this lane. It's like a tri-lane scenario. It's pretty weird. I feel like this probably won't happen in low rated pubs. You either have like this tri-lane versus 2 heroes and stomp them, or you know, maybe you never even see the 3 heroes to begin with before like the 10-minute mark. As you can see, just a really active and fast game. Trying to make sure we apply pressure to eventually stop this Jug who's just free farming bot. At this point, it's pretty rough for them. There's not much more to really talk about. Again, I go mid, see if there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity, run back top. Just rinse and repeat, more of the same. And at this point, the Void leaves and I just try to hold his tower. I just try to take the EXP and make sure the tower doesn't die. This is something that will typically happen, especially when you're really active, when you're helping other people's games, is your game will be hurt a little bit more. So eventually, the roles will kind of reverse, and now this guy will go farm and kind of make space for you, or like move around with like say his ultimate with like Chronosphere, or like a Quap with ultimate, or a Puck with Coil. And then you're gonna basically catch your game back up by standing in the mid lane. Now what happens when you do this is, depending on how much golden EXP you can get, potentially could free you up to not have to use the tome, and then like someone like Snapfire who's having a bad game could, you know, get the tome, or even like your 5 roll. But at this point, I think there's not much more to talk about in this replay, as we're only focusing on the laning stage. So we'll go ahead and look at the next replay. So before we jump into this replay, I wanted to go ahead and give a little bit of backstory into what exactly happened. As you can see here, I'm really farmed on Rubik and I had a really good game. But you wouldn't actually know that it would turn out like this if you saw what happened in the early game. Basically, the laning stage wasn't that great. I even fed pretty early on, like 3 minutes in. But it's really important here. I wanted to show basically how you transition not the best laning stage into where you have, you know, a game like this. So with that said, we'll go ahead and jump right in. The reason why I wanted to show the differences between a roamer like Earth Spirit or Tiny, and then show someone like Rubik or Phoenix, someone who would be more static in lane, you're gonna basically try to win the lane, and you winning your lane matters a lot more than on these roamers. Yeah, I think it's really important to draw this difference, and especially when it comes to like item build and stuff. So you can see in the last game, I didn't have that much regen because I knew I planned on leaving the lane pretty early and that the regen wouldn't really matter in the lane, so I can be a bit more greedy and get an item like Magic Stick. In this lane, I opt to go for a bit more regen. I could have went for like a null talisman with one set of tangos, which is a pretty popular thing to do on Rubik right now. But basically I knew in my lane matchup, we're gonna be Rubik and Mars versus Arc Warden and Oracle. So I knew that it'd be two ranged heroes, and basically they have one ranged hero advantage over us. And the kill threat isn't that high because, again, it's two ranged heroes. They're not gonna be probably walking up to get speared and nuked and all that. So instead of going for like a null talisman, I opt to get a bit more regen, and I get stats so that I can right click them back and maybe even tank a bit more harass of theirs, just to give you a little bit of insight into why I built the way I did. Nothing too crazy here, just going for a creep block. Alright, so one thing I wanted to talk about here is when you're in this position of where they have like more power than you, they're going to push you off the creep wave. What's going to happen is they're going to want to control this range creep. So in the last game, when I was Earth Spirit, as you saw, I had pretty much no way to get to the range creep because the Undying bullied us off the wave entirely. But so for here, we have two ways to get it. We have Fade Bolt, and we also have Spear of Mars or even God's Rebuke. So when you have two ways of securing this range creep, one person could actually use their harass to push them off the creep wave and just, you know, some previous level Dota and just use your spells to harass them and to fight them off the wave. And the other person should use the spell, obviously, to secure the last hit. If you don't communicate this or even think about this, both people might hold their spells to try to get this range creep. So what would happen is you just basically get pushed off the wave, which is pretty much what happens here. Looking back, what we should have done, and here I'll rewind it real quick. I saved my Fade Bolt to try to secure this range creep so that we get maximum EXP in lane. And I'm pretty sure he had the same idea, but obviously I get the last hit. In my opinion, what we could have done differently maybe is he could have tried to secure the last hit with God's Rebuke, or even harass them with God's Rebuke, and then I used Fade Bolt to get the last hit. Either way, we basically just used one spell, and this guy's been sitting on full mana. And it's good to just start getting your spells on cooldown and start regenerating your mana. Yeah, pretty much just the same thing for both waves. You can see a pretty big difference here, where I don't have to go try to desperately drag the creeps, whereas in the last one, the lane was just so hard where we were basically forced into like this desperation mode where we have to fight for these creep pulls and whatnot. So for example, let's say we didn't have as much strength in this lane, but I was still Rubik. I could consider walking over here at 1 minute and trying to block this creep camp. But basically I know that we're strong enough to probably fight them off the waves anyway, so I choose to stay here. So right there, I think I probably made a mistake not trying to stop this pull, but I feel like we're strong enough to where we can just walk over here and probably just contest it, and we don't have to worry too much about it. In general, if you can contest people pulling, them pulling isn't that big of a deal, because you can usually just farm the creep camp with them. Obviously you can see we kind of get outplayed. The Oracle takes the last hits. It's not going too good for us, but it's not that bad. But yeah, at this point it's starting to, you know, get a little carried away. He's pulling the small camp now. Yeah, your job as a 4-roll pretty much always is to take care of these camps. And even though I die here, it's not the end of the world. So at the end of the day, I still contested his pull. But realistically, what I should have done is either tried to block the camp, or around the time that he wants to pull the camp, around 15 or 45, I can auto-attack the creep camp myself and try to pull it away. Or I can even just stand here and deny him from pulling it. It's a pretty big mistake there. But even despite that, the lane isn't too hard, because we're in a side lane and obviously we can just pull ourselves. Yeah, it's kind of the same with the safe lane as well. If you're able to contest this pull, it's not that big of a deal, but you still should try to do it no matter what, because after they got their pulls, they're kind of just getting free farm and doing whatever they want. So kind of to deny them from doing that, we got our own pull going so that we can static the wave in front of our tower and get a nice little creep equilibrium here. As you saw here, I walked towards the river because it hit the 4-minute mark. I want to look for the runes. Luckily, Storm got it anyway, but because I died, I wasn't able to actually go ahead and pull and contest the stuff. Basically, every time you die, it just kind of sets your timer, all your timings back just a little bit. So as you saw, I couldn't even contest the rune there. Whereas if I didn't die, I probably were, you know, I could walk down river and actually help Storm secure one of the runes. Yeah, so here we see we're fighting them. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the lane doesn't go too good, but either way, we salvage it back. And now, after the lane is pretty much done with, because around like 5 minutes is when people start to get more active. The mid laners will start to hit level 6. The power runes are spawning much more often, and people are going to be much more active in general. So this is when, usually as a 4, especially because it's nighttime, you want to start looking for more opportunities to leave your lane. and do things elsewhere. So like I talked about in the last replay, usually you want to play in one of your side lanes plus mid if possible. So for this one, obviously I'm focusing more on winning my own lane, so I want to stay towards top, and then I work towards mid for the rune. And again, like I said, nighttime, so we go for this kill. Wasn't actually sure if we were going to get this or not. Alright, so we do. Yeah, it's really good just to make your presence felt. Even if this gank didn't work, it's still good to just rear your head in mid for some TPs, maybe make Ember feel a little bit more pressured, so that if he's feeling a little bit more confident in the mid lane that he's like getting this free 1v1, he'll be a little bit more hesitant to walk up. And you can see here again, I go stack a camp, secure the rune for Storm. It's just really good to help your mid laner out, because basically what happens in this game is because top didn't go that well, all the help that it gives Storm, he basically will pump it back into us top. So like you saw, I helped him get that kill, I even helped him get that regen rune, which frees him up to basically get full resources, so that when these people misplay here, what happens is the Storm is more free now, because his lane was so much easier and to go do other things. So he TP's top here, and we get some nice kills. And what's important to note about this is basically because I helped his game, not only is he helping us here, but now he's able to go jungle, and then mid lane is free for anybody to take. So, you know, you see here I TP mid, now Storm's jungling. This is how you see players like Yapzor on Team Secret, or just really greedy 4 roles in general. This is usually how they'll go about becoming really greedy and getting like that core level amount of farm, like I showed earlier at the end of the replay. So here I'll fast forward. As you can see here, I'm literally 4th on net worth by, you know, the end of the game. And really, all it came down to was because I helped the Storm out, and then he basically helped me out and let me have a game. Obviously, there was probably some other stuff that happened. You know, we get some outplays and some ganks and stuff. So even at like 16 minutes, you know, I'm more farmed than the other 4 role, but I'm still not that farmed yet. But still, it's really important to like form this distinction between when you want to help your own lane and when you're trying to help other people. Because typically what will happen is when you help other people, it gives them the resources so that they can move around the map or even go jungle, and then it frees you up to take their lane. Alright guys, so that'll do it for this 4 role replay analysis. I know I didn't go too in depth in these replays and I only showed the laning stage, but again, I think as a support, your emphasis should usually be on trying to win the lanes, because typically you can piggyback and snowball and win off the laning stages. So I'll do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and again, just leave comments below. I always read them, unless, you know, it's a little too negative, but either way, constructive criticism is always really appreciated, so make sure you go ahead and do that. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next video.